Good afternoon, welcome to Trade Plates TV Live. You're joining us here in Gosport. The same thing as usual. If you want to get involved in the show today, it's very, very simple. All you need to do is look below the screen now. There's a little chat box underneath. Get on there, let us know who you are and where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions, send them over. We're happy to talk about any topics you want to throw over. You can also tweet us at Trade Plates TV, or you can get on Facebook and send us a message on there. Today on the show, I'm going to be joined later with Jamie Hill, who is from Hill Shipping. He's going to be talking about importing and exporting cars, mainly to the US. So if you've got any questions about that, send them over in preparation. But joining me now, I've got with me Ken Savage. He's the chairman of Perry's, and you're also involved in things like the RMI, trusted dealers. So
that's correct, yes.
Got quite a wide range of knowledge when it comes to the automotive industry.
Well, I've been doing it for a few years,
yeah.
So I would hope so.
So how long have you been at Perry's now?
Perry's about 16 years. I joined June 2000, principally to do a management buyout, which we did in March 2001, and pretty much a success story since then.
So how much has it changed since then?
How much did it change? Well, it's grown an awful lot. I remember the turnover in the first year was 258 million, and you can tell I'm an accountant, can't you? And we're going to be knocking on the door of 700 million this year. So,
wow,
you know, the business has grown significantly over the years. But there again, you know, it is 15 years, and we've been buying occasional sale, but mainly buying businesses and growing the group and just moving forward, really.
And for anyone that doesn't know, what sort of, how many dealerships and franchises are you up to now?
We've got 13 different franchises, and we have 52 franchise points on about 30, I think it's about 35 locations. A lot of our dealerships tend to be quite big, multi-franchise. So if you look at Aylesbury, for instance, we've got Vauxhall, Ford, Seat, Renault, and Fiat.
Right.
And 4 out of those 5 franchises are actually in the same showroom.
Okay.
So huge business.
How does that work well for you, having them all in the same site?
It's challenging, very challenging. Yeah, when it works really well, but it is challenging having keeping that number of balls in the air, and you do need some talented management to pull it off, really.
So how has Perry's been doing in 2016? How's it been going so far?
So far, so good. We've had a lot of change. We had an acquisition last year where we bought GK Group, which has gone tremendously well, and that's performing ahead of plan. We've just sold off our JLR businesses this year, which was just part of the JLR reorganisation.
Right.
We're about to open a brand new dealership in Preston. As we speak, that is moving over. So there's been an awful lot going on this year, and in terms of the profitability, we're ahead of plan. So can't complain about that.
Have you got more big plans for the year? I know you said you've got the dealership in Preston. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, Preston, we've had a big site in Preston for many years. It was leased, and it was coming to the end of the lease. So the option was renew the lease or move, and we found a good plot, so we've built a brand new dealership on about 6 acres, big Vauxhall business, Kia and Mazda, good location, so very exciting. We walk around it. I've just walked around as a building site so far, and takes your breath away, the scale of the whole thing.
Wow.
It doesn't help when you've not got any cars on, it makes it look even bigger. But we're very excited about Preston.
When are you looking to move in there? Probably?
Well, the Kia and Mazda are already in,
okay.
and Vauxhall will move on the 7th of June.
Wow, so not long at all.
Not long at all, no.
Yeah. So the important question that everyone keeps asking us is, how are you finding new car sales and used car sales this year, or generally?
Okay, it's never easy, is it? I mean, it's but we always seem to get there one way or the other. We actually had, I think everybody had a fabulous March. We had a record March. It was really good. Just a lot of things came together. There was a good market. We had a good time on both new and used cars. January was very challenging. And January seems to have gone that way. The last couple of years I've noticed that December's stronger, which is sucking trade out of January. So January becomes more challenging. February is what February is. But March again was very, very good. April was 3 out of 4 weeks was pretty good. Last week seemed to go a bit quieter. May difficult to call at the moment, but it should be okay. But we seem to be doing our accounting more on a quarterly basis than monthly these days, because we're seeing more and more of the profits come from bonuses and from the manufacturers, which come in the quarter end and really then make the quarter. So you're holding tight for 2 months and then having a big third month.
Right, okay. So when it comes to new car sales versus used car sales, what are you seeing at Perry's?
It's fairly balanced. New cars are doing all right, and used cars are probably doing a bit better than all right. They're probably doing quite well, in fact. You know, we're up year on year on used car profitability, and really going quite well.
Was it what you were expecting?
What we're expecting, yeah, well, we're a little ahead of plan, so it's a bit better than we were expecting. And yeah, it's always difficult to call, isn't it? You look forward to the following year and you never really know where the economy's going to go, so you make some assumptions, and so far it's been okay. I mean, we've got some challenges. I mean, some of the, I'm sure you'll touch on it, some targets from manufacturers are, shall we say, ambitious.
Right.
But you know, we generally get there one way or the other, and then that drops the money in, and we move on.
So what I'm hearing from a lot of people, though, is that they don't think used car sales are doing particularly well when they've been affected by new car sales, but doesn't seem to sound like that's...
No, I mean the pressure that we're under with new car sales does affect our used car business, and there's no doubt that we are seeing an element of customers coming in on a used car then getting moved to new cars. You know, that is happening, and probably happening more than it ever has in the past. But even with that going on, used cars are holding up quite well, and the fact that we're able to do that, we're able to transfer some used to new, does make the whole business work.
But used cars still quite a big part of your business?
Massive part,
yeah.
Massive part. I mean, our business is quite balanced. I mean, we make equal, probably similar amount of money out of, I'm trying to remember the numbers now. New and used is sort of fairly well balanced, and then after sales obviously very, very, very important.
We've just had a question from Umesh, who, I don't know if you know this figure off the top of your head, but what percentage of your new cars are sold on PCPs?
Pat, I don't know.
Okay.
We have a very high finance percentage on new cars. That's certain. What percentage on PCPs? I'm not sure. Probably quite a lot.
Okay. And something else that Umesh touched on earlier, we had a message from him on Twitter. How do you think the future of used car retailing will change?
That's a tough one. How will it change? Clearly digital is a big issue, isn't it, in terms of it is the future in terms of marketing. How will it change? I'm not sure, quite honestly. I don't see it changing fundamentally. I think people will become more comfortable with perhaps buying from a dealer further away, because they'll feel that, you know, they feel more comfortable with transactions over line. I'm not suggesting that they'll actually transact for the car over line, but they will see it perhaps 200 miles away and be prepared to travel and buy the car.
Is that because they trust that what they're seeing online is what they're going to get, I guess? I
think so. I think people are becoming more accepting of, I mean, we all buy online these days, don't we? You know, if you need a new battery or a new light bulb, you buy it from Amazon or wherever. And I think people are looking for cars. Clearly people are looking for cars online. I think it really is the exception now, anybody who doesn't. But they're not transacting online. And I still think that's going to be a little while away. We probably will get there, but I don't know when. But I think it's more a case of people will be more comfortable to say, well, it's the right car, so it's 200 miles away, but I'm prepared to travel because it probably will be as described.
What do you think customers are thinking when they turn up and maybe it's not what they were expecting? Are they so concerned about that, or? Well,
I've not picked that up, and certainly with our business, you know, and I think I think most people trade in a very honourable sort of way, and the cars are properly prepared, and there should be absolutely no reason why the car's not as described. The last thing a salesman wants to do is get a customer down under false pretenses. It's just not worth it. You know, the car needs to be right, sell the car right, and move on and then sell the next one.
Do you think people are partly more worried as well because it's easier to now send a car back if it's not what you thought it was?
Well, our dealer's worried.
Yeah, true.
It's very good for the consumer. We've had a little bit of that, not a huge amount. But I guess it's just another of those challenges that's set to keep us busy and keep us occupied. And is it a concern? A bit of a concern, but I think you just have to roll with the blows and get on and deal with it. It will happen.
Yeah. We mentioned it earlier that there's some, I don't know, are you struggling with manufacturer targets, or is it just a sort of management game?
Yeah, it's a bit of a game, isn't it? I mean, all the time I've been in the motor trade, manufacturer targets has been topical. It's probably more topical at the moment because some of the targeting is, shall we describe it as ambitious? Right. But it's really down to having a relationship with that manufacturer to find somewhere in the middle that can work with both parties. But some of the targeting, you do take a deep intake of breath when you see the number. And different manufacturers play it differently. Some start with a high number knowing that actually you're going to negotiate and you'll get somewhere that's sensible. Others just start with a number and you think and it's not negotiable, and then you have to decide whether actually is it achievable. And generally if you dig deep, generally you will get there, and sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll just look at the numbers and say, you know, it's just not doable, and then you have to trade for profit.
And how does that affect your business though?
Well, we've done that. That happened on one particular manufacturer last year where we couldn't agree a target, and we said, okay, we're out of the campaign for the quarter, and we got on and we just sold the cars, and we sold them for a little bit more margin, and overall we didn't do too bad. Right. So it's not the end of the world if you can't agree a target. It's not great, and 9 times out of 10 we will agree a target and then sell the cars.
If you have to do something like that, does that go down really badly with your dealers who are working towards bonus, or do they understand?
I think they understand. They understand better than anybody the challenges of high targeting, because they've got to deliver, and they accept that if the manufacturer's been over ambitious, and we're given a figure that is just not achievable. Well, it's not achievable, and it's no point kidding yourself and ending up having to do a lot of self-registrations at the quarter end, which then gives you a problem for the following quarter, and you really are on the back foot then.
Are you finding that self-registrations are a problem for you? Is it a negative, or is it something that you just have to deal with?
It's something you have to deal with. I think in itself it's not a problem as long as you've got a bit of money behind them. The real issue is when you've got too many of them and it starts to swamp the business. That's when it's a problem.
Does it happen a lot?
It has happened. It's not happened more recently, and that's really a case of managing the situation, and that's down to the dealer management job of saying, well, you know, we've got to sell X number of cars in the period. Let's just make sure that we get these cars gone with whatever campaigns that we need to run. Change the demonstrators, change the staff cars, change the courtesy cars, all the usual sort of things we do. Right.
So I've had a question from Tim, who says, are margins on new vehicles this year, have they been under more pressure than last year?
Margins on new vehicles. I'm just trying to remember our management accounts, which I was looking at yesterday. A little bit behind last year, but not hugely. Certainly the first quarter was all right because we ticked the boxes and achieved the margins. I think the margins are similar, but what we are finding, you know, we are having to sell more cars, and it varies by manufacturer. Some manufacturers are holding out better than others.
Right. Okay. So obviously you're involved in Trusted Dealers, or
yes.
You're one of the founders.
Yes.
I was just wondering, what was the story behind that? How did that all come about?
It came about, from the dealer network, just frustration with our friends at Auto Trader. Probably are listening in. But
it's a long time ago, wasn't
a long time ago. But back in 2008, when it was all getting very, very difficult, and it was just a real difficult time for dealers as prices of cars were falling through the floor, and finance was getting more difficult, and Auto Trader were out there putting the prices up by 20%. It was just untenable, and the attitude of Auto Trader at the time was just untenable, and it was just frustration of that we as dealers were suffering. And I spoke to a lot of other dealers, and I wrote to a lot of chief execs, and I said, well, we really should do our own thing in terms of putting together a platform that we can market our cars on, and not as dependent on Auto Trader. And there was a lot of support for that. I mean, to the effect that 35 dealer groups put their hand in the pocket for 10 grand each, which gave us the money to kick off Trusted Dealers. Now, come full circle, has Trusted Dealers been a success? Well, the attitude of Auto Trader has changed dramatically.
Because you've linked up with them as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Trusted Dealers website is now actually hosted by Auto Trader. Yeah. And as a group, whilst we're not fully on Auto Trader, we do have a relationship. We are putting some cars on, and we do find they have changed 360 degrees.
Right.
You know, they really are working with the dealer to, sounds like an advertisement for Auto Trader now, but they really are working with the dealer to help us. They're still expensive. But it's down to us to make the call, is it value for money?
So on the other side of Trusted Dealers, it's obviously the aim was to make dealers more trusted, I guess, to prove that
there was a tie-up. There's been two tie-ups. There's one tie-up with Auto Trader in terms of the hosting, but we also tied up with the NFDA, National Franchise Dealer Association. And we felt that the aims of Trusted Dealers and NFDA were exactly aligned, because it's all about working for the franchise dealer. I mean, Trusted Dealers is a non-profit making organisation. Any surplus they make gets ploughed back into marketing. And working together with NFDA, we felt it gave Trusted Dealers more credibility and perhaps introduced it to a wider audience. And again, I think that's been very, very successful. And what we're hoping with Trusted Dealers is to move it beyond just being a used car portal to being representing the aims of franchise dealers, to say, hey, we're good guys, and these are the reasons why you need to be buying from a franchise dealer.
Okay. So we've had a question from John, who says, do pre-regs ultimately drive down the price? Some groups like Arnold Clark have huge savings off cards being advertised as new, even if they're not, and makes it look like really cheap prices are available, which surely has an effect on everyone else. That was a very long question, John. Thank you for that.
A long question and a very complex answer, I think. Does it drive down price? I think what we're seeing is discretionary pricing. It's a bit like buying a train ticket, isn't it? You can buy the same train ticket and pay 10 different prices. And you can buy an Astra and you can pay 10 different prices depending where and when you buy it. And does it drive down? It certainly makes the environment more competitive. And Arnold Clark, Eddie buys his cars very, very well. But so do we. And does it drive down prices? It probably does. But we can still make a living out of it.
Yeah, it's not hurting you too bad.
No, as I say, we're still making a living out of it. We're still not getting an acceptable return from selling new cars. So that's actually all that matters, really.
Okay. So that's gone really quickly, and we're coming up to 20 past. We are going to cut to a break very, very, very shortly, and we're going to have Jamie Hill on. So if you've got any questions for Jamie about importing and exporting cars, maybe even how that relates to us staying in the EU, send them over. And we are going to cut to a break, and as you know, next week on Tuesday is CDX, so I promise you this will be the last time for a very long time that you'll have to see the CDX advert. Okay, we will see you in about 3 minutes.
At This year's CDX 16 car dealers can expect an action-packed day. We've managed to line up some fantastic keynote speakers. People like Facebook and Twitter are going to be there to explain to dealers how to use social media to the best possible way when it comes to selling cars. We've got Google, who are going to explain how the search engine can work best for dealers. We're also delighted to say that we've got Jim Holder. He's the editorial director from Haymarket, behind brands like What Car, Autocar and Piston Heads, and he's going to be giving some fantastic insight into what car buyers want these days.
Some of the key workshops of CDX 16 will be covering topics such as personnel, training and development, how to find the right talent, how to retain that talent, and how to look at things like your website, marketing, and of course the all-important how to increase sales.
Suppliers really need to be at CDX. It has rapidly become the event for the motor trade. Last year we had 1,500 dealers turn up. This year we're aiming for 2,000.
All of our workshops are hosted by experts in their field. So you're going to come away and you're going to have learnt something from those workshops that you can implement and put into place in your business the very next day.
This year for CDX 16 we're not resting on our laurels, we are making it bigger and better than ever before. And that's not only the expo is going to be larger, we've got an additional hall, but we're also going to be focusing more on the workshops. The workshops are where dealers can learn something new. We've got 12 fantastic topics. They range from recruitment to personnel to making the most out of online sales. And it's the place where dealers can really pick up some hints and tips to better their business and make that day out of the office really pay for itself. So if they haven't got a place at this year's CDX, they need to hurry up because places are selling out very, very quickly indeed. It's very easy to get more information about CDX 16. They can simply click on a link that's probably going to be playing underneath my face. They can call the office on 02392 522 434 or tweet us. I'm at Car Dealer Ed, the magazine's at Car Dealer Mag. We're out there, we're listening to what you've got to say, and if you need any help in booking a place or booking a ticket, then get in touch with myself or any one of the team here.
Hello, welcome back to Trade Plates TV Live. Hopefully you joined us for the first half and you'll know that with me today I've got Ken Savage, the chairman of Perry's, but also we've got Jamie Hill from Hill Shipping who's going to be talking to us. If you've got any questions for him, just let me know on the chat box and I'll pass them over. We've got them for about the next 10 minutes, so get typing. So hello Jamie, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you Rebecca. Thanks for coming on the show. Nice to meet you again.
So what I want to ask you first is, can you explain a little bit about what your company does and what you do, what's your role?
Yeah, certainly. I'm the manager at Hill Shipping. We're a family business. We've been going for 21 years this year, and primarily we do imports and exports of motor vehicles, and majority of them vehicles are classic cars.
Right, okay. And how did you get into that? Was it just you started shipping cars and it turned into classics, or was it always the aim of the business?
Yeah, pretty much. We shipped cars in general, as we do now. We worked with a lot of the leading manufacturers like Mazda, Kia, and some others like Suzuki, Toyota. Pretty much all the main ones really. And then we got more involved in the Japanese imports at the time. I think they were called like grey imports. And then we moved on to the classics. There was no real plan as such. It was just a case of getting a name as car shippers, and then it sort of progressed from there really.
Are you sourcing these cars, or are people coming to you?
We have inquiries from individuals looking for us to source the cars. We have contacts in America, so what we do is we tend to give them our contact details so they can liaise directly, and then that way they can speak about the type of car they want, especially with classics. They can get quite particular about the type of classic they want and obviously the budget, so we find it best if they speak to our guys directly, and then we then handle the shipping. Right,
so what sort of cars are people buying? What are they bringing over here to start with?
Well, I could probably pull out about 50 files, and hardly any of them would be the same make and model at the moment. From Ford Mustangs, Pontiacs, Chevrolet Corvettes, Lincoln Continentals, is every make and model of a classic you can think of. A lot of old English cars coming back across, like Jaguars and MGs.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it keeps it really varied. We get quite an influx of Volkswagen camper vans coming in from California. So that's always very popular. That's probably one of the most popular ones that we bring in. And we also deal with motorcycles as well, and Triumphs and Harleys, all that type of stuff as well.
Have you seen like a change in what people are buying over the years, or is it always those cars?
When we first got involved in it, it was more, I'd say, stereotype cars, like it would be your Mustang and your Corvette. But over the years, it's been a much wider variety, and cars I've never even heard of. There was one prototype that was built by the Argentinian government that someone had found. He's actually he's quite a well-known person actually, and he does find some obscure cars. And he brought that in, and I've never done one before, never done one since, and I don't think I'll ever do another one probably.
Right. So what about going the other way? Are people exporting stuff from the UK?
Yeah, with the rates of exchange, where they've gone to like 1.4 to the pound, the dollar now roughly. That works good for us in the sense for exports. So people have been buying cars from America, and we've got guys here that are shipping Land Rovers and Minis out to the USA, and also ship cargo to Australia as well. Right,
okay. I'll never really think about that. Are they quite popular over there then, Land Rovers?
Yeah, very popular, yeah. They really like them, and there's been a real big influx of Minis in particular going out the last few months. They seem to be really catching a buzz now, and again, it's classics. They've got similar rules in America to do with their emissions tests, so you really have to try and bring a car in over 25 years of age, otherwise it costs a real obscene amount of money to get the car to meet their criteria.
Okay. So we talked briefly before, and you tried to explain this to me, but there's some weird rule where if you're importing stuff, you don't really have to pay any money. It's probably a way too simple way of saying it. Can you explain it?
Yeah. It's basically the rule is if a vehicle's got no substantial changes to the engine, chassis, brakes or steering, and it's over 30 years of age, and that model in particular is no longer in production, as with most classics, then you won't pay any import duty at all, and the VAT rate will be just 5%.
How much would you be paying if it didn't meet those criteria?
If it was a car, you'd pay 10% duty and 20% VAT. And if it was a pickup truck, you'd pay 22% import duty and again 20% VAT.
See, I really want a Ford Thunderbird, so that makes me really excited.
5% VAT. We'll give you a Trade Plates TV discount.
Yeah, that'd be good. We'll talk about that later. So, are you importing or exporting anywhere else in the world? What interesting things have been going on with you guys?
Yeah, we do quite a lot of exports to some of the African countries. We've worked with quite a few Premier League footballers over the last few years, and when the season finishes, we tend to ship back to Ghana, Ivory Coast and Cameroon.
Oh, really? So they've bought them here and then they're going home? So
yeah, basically, right. Yeah, they ship cars back home, so they're all ready for their summer break. They can get back and drive their nice Hummer. Things like that. Other than that, it's mainly Australia and America for the exports, and imports primarily USA, Canada, and South Africa. What
have you had in recently that's been like particularly caught your eye?
There was a Chevrolet Corvette which we just loaded up recently. A gentleman paid about absolutely in immaculate condition. Looks amazing. It's one of the best cars I think I've probably ever shipped in, to be honest with you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to tell us how much that's worth?
About 100,000 he paid for it.
Wow. So if you break it, you're in real trouble.
Yeah, it's I'll tell it all the way through. Yeah.
So you use a lot of these on Twitter. Is it you taking the photos or someone else? Or?
We have surveyors at the ports that we use around the country, and also in America, because of all the cars we ship, we offer a full cover marine insurance policy. So that starts from when the car's picked up to when we deliver it through to the client in the UK, or if they pick it up in the UK, then the insurance stops at that point. So they know for peace of mind that when their car's in the water, touch wood, hopefully nothing will ever happen, but that they're covered in that.
But does that work well for you though, having those photos to share and use?
Yes, very well. Yeah, for the main purpose, it is to show the client what the vehicle's like when it's arrived and when it's been shipped from the USA, for example. But it also helps in terms of social media, because obviously then I've got something to keep constantly tweeting about, and on LinkedIn as well. And because the pictures are so varied, there's so many different makes and models, I think it keeps the interest flowing quite nicely.
No, that's really cool. So something that I don't know how well you can talk about this, but you're obviously involved in imports and exports, and this is what people keep saying they're concerned about, well, particularly for the car industry when it comes to this in or out vote. What are your thoughts on the subject?
I think so far, from what I've read to do with the car industry and manufacturing in general, I think a lot of it feels like scaremongering that the press have been putting across. It's not really read any actual concrete facts so far about why we should stay in and how it could affect us for certain if we did pull out. I suppose the general view is that we do employ a lot of people in the car industry in general. I think across the country, I've read figures directly and indirectly, it's about 800,000 people across the country that are employed because of that. So it'd be terrible, obviously, if there was problems involved because of trade restrictions. But I don't see why countries in the EU would stop buying cars from this country all of a sudden if we did pull out. I remember in 2002 when we was told we should be going in the Euro, and if we didn't do that, all the big car manufacturing companies would pull out, and that never happened. We didn't, and I think it was lucky in hindsight that we didn't join the Euro. So perhaps if we did come out the EU, then it might work for our favour in that respect.
You don't seem too worried, so.
I don't think anybody knows the real reasons or the real problems that might happen if it is. Everyone's just presuming, or until someone can release some actual concrete figures. There's so many arguments for and against, and I think what you watch on TV, and you have to sort of remind yourself the government spent £9 million on dropping leaflets for everyone's doors to tell us to stay in. It'd be nice to hear arguments a bit more substantial on what would happen if we did leave and actually prove some facts and some figures.
So we've had a question from Umesh, who I think is now interested in importing some stuff from California. Who wants to know what's the average cost of a car from California to the UK?
Average cost of a car, I'd say from California, including collection from the seller, you'd be looking in a shared container between £1,500 to £1,800 roughly. Could be a bit cheaper. I'm sure I know Umesh now from Twitter, so we can. If he quotes Trade Plates TV on his email, again, quote discount.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, we can get loads of those now.
East Coast shipping. You can probably get a car across. I've done it before for about £900. We've got one coming across now from Savannah. That's cost about £900. Out of New York, you're probably looking at about £1,200, including collection.
Wow. What's your favourite car that you've ever imported? I know you said you've had one that you've never shipped before, but is there one that you particularly like? Yeah,
I'm always fond of the DeLoreans that we ship across.
Oh, really?
We had a few this year, and we had a lot last year because of the anniversary of Back to the Future films.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had quite a few come in, and I really enjoy seeing that. That's a personal favourite of mine, that car.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken, I don't know if you've got any questions for Jamie?
What about Porsches? I'm interested in all Porsches myself.
Yeah, but actually, we've had about 3 Porsches come in the last month, actually. One of them was a project car, the other 2 were pretty much completed and looked immaculate, and they were from California, so no rust.
I didn't realise this was going to turn into like live negotiation.
Well, it'd be nice to see some classic cars on the Paris forecourts.
Yeah, or in my garage.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
No.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for coming on. I think we're going to say goodbye, but thank you, that's really interesting. And I love your wallpaper.
Thank you.
It's really good. All right, bye. That was Jamie from Hill Shipping. You can find him, I think he's Jamie Hill UK on Twitter if you want to see any pictures of those lovely classic cars. And also, I'm going to say hello from Tipperary Hope. It's Edmund. We will see you at CDX 16, both of us will actually, because Ken's going to be on the live stage. I think 10:30 if my memory's correct.
I thought it was 2 o'clock.
Could be. Ken probably knows better than me. I've got a lot of stuff on that day. So just talking about Brexit there, I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think there's two discussions, medium and long term, and I think if we went out, certainly the short term, it would be a disaster in terms of our business, just the level of uncertainty, because people will be sitting there not knowing what's going to happen, what's going to happen to the economy. And when you've got uncertainty, it's never good for car sales, because people don't buy cars, they sit back to see what happens. And I really wouldn't want us to vote to go out. And I think that period would be very, very difficult until that level of certainty actually, so we could start to understand what out actually means. So, and in the bigger picture, I think a lot of this is emotional driven.
Right.
You know, we talk about immigration, and but the fact of the matter is, you know, it's immigration that's funding our economy, because they're our valeters, they're cleaning our cars, they're cleaning our houses, they're supporting our economy. That's my personal view. So I think we should be part of Europe. I wouldn't pretend to try and understand the whole economic argument of this whole thing, but my feel is, and certainly when you listen to Mark Carney from the Bank of England, he's a guy who really probably does understand the bigger picture, and he's saying we should be staying in. I've got to say, that's got to be my vote, to stay in.
Are you finding that there's any uncertainty at the moment?
It's difficult to call, but we do know that anything like this does cause a slowdown in sales. We saw it with the Scottish election last year. That definitely slowed sales down. And you know, as I said, we had a very good March. April was going pretty good, but we saw a slowdown in the fourth week of April. So it's got to affect. It's got to distract people. And as I say, people tend to, if they're thinking of changing a vehicle, but if there's something going out there where people might be thinking, I'm not sure about my income, my job, my bonus, my whatever income that they're getting, we'll just pull the punches.
This might be sound stupid, but with PCP, when people come to their end of their PCP deal, does that make it easier for you if there is any uncertainty, because they have that choice where it's either you don't want your car anymore or you swap into something else? Does that force people, I guess, to stay in the new car game?
I think so. I think because it forces a decision, as you say, to either stay in or change, and generally people will change at that point in time. And you know, if they're used to PCPs, and they're comfortable with the idea of, well, you know, the cost of running a car is just the monthly payment. I think PCPs are good for new car sales, without a shadow of a doubt.
So on a more positive note, what do you think has been your greatest achievement at Perry's?
Right. Well,
That's in general.
That's in general. I think just going back to the management buyout, actually getting through that. I mean, that
must have been a massive process.
It was very challenging, and you know, I did it with the chap who headed it was a chap called Paul Millard. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years after the buyout. But I always remember sat down with Paul, and he said to me, "How do you fancy buying this lot?" And I said, "Why not?" And he was literally on the back of an envelope. He wrote down some numbers and said, "Well, you know, these are the fixed assets, and we can borrow 70% of that, and we can borrow 70% of debtors, and we borrow 30 odd million, and we can buy it." Yeah, happy days, and well, that's what we did. And I'm not sure you'd be able to pull that off these days with the way banks are, but I think just getting the buyout through, and then, you know, those early days where you know, management buyouts always at the most risk, and getting through that and to where we are now.
How long did that process take?
The actual process of doing the negotiation of the buyout was an 8-month exercise.
Wow.
But very, very difficult time.
I can imagine. But you've just gone through buying GK Group?
We have, yes. We bought that last year.
And how was that?
Well, that's gone remarkably well. It's a great business. We refer to it as Perry's East Midlands now. And,
right, okay.
You have to put pound in the swear box if you say GK.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Because we're trying to bring them all part of the family. And it's a lovely bunch of people, a lovely bunch of businesses. I'm pleased to say that we've done the acquisition and we've not lost a single individual out of the 400 odd people that we took on. And we're investing in the business. Its returns are above what we forecast them to be. So it's gone remarkably well. A lot to do, but we're well down the track.
What was it that was appealing to GK? to Perry's East Midlands?
Several things. Franchise-wise, it was 5 Ford businesses, and we were light on Ford. We only had two Ford, so bringing more Ford on gave us a bit of scale with Ford and expertise with Ford that we didn't really have. And obviously they had Mazda and Kia, which we already had, and we could bring expertise to them because they didn't have the scale or expertise as much as Perry's did on the Mazda Kia. And also geographically it fitted very well, being just south of our Yorkshire business, existing Yorkshire businesses, so it sort of filled another gap in the country.
Is there any other gaps in the country you're looking to fill, or are you looking to grow?
Well, we're not looking to do anything big in the short term. We might do the odd dealership here and there. We were still digesting East Midlands. So no, nothing big in the short term. And our strategy has always been to acquire in areas where we've got current representation. So, you know, wouldn't be much point in us buying a business in Birmingham, for instance, where nobody has heard of our brand. But Yorkshire, Lancashire, home counties, Kent, all those sort of areas are all good areas for us.
Okay. So your biggest brands now must be Ford, Vauxhall?
No, Vauxhall's still our biggest brand in terms of number of,
but you're historically
dealerships.
Ford, built on Ford, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we trace our history with Ford back to 1912, when we were the second Ford dealer in the UK, first Ford dealer in London. And, you know, there was a great tie-up between Perry's and Henry Ford, and, you know, bringing Ford in, and I always get Harold de Percival was the first chairman of Ford in the UK. So, and if you look at the Ford website, you can actually find reference to Perry's and in the early days. So it's a fabulous history.
It must also be one of the oldest dealers in the UK.
I would think so.
Specifics, but that's...
I know it was second oldest Ford.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I know to think that Ford is probably about the oldest franchise in the UK.
Yeah.
It's difficult to think of any others. So yes, Henley Group was the first.
Yeah, of course.
Which is a local business, isn't it?
Yeah, South Coast people.
Yes.
So I'm going to steal a question which someone posed last week and see what do you think is the big challenges for the motor trade over the next 5 years? What's coming up that?
I suppose it's probably digital and where digital is going, and you know, will we still need the level of facilities that we've got at the moment in terms of showroom sizes and how we adapt to that? You know, because digital is still evolving. I don't think it's there in terms of the final story. Things will become more sophisticated. I can't see them getting any easier. I think you know, the business challenges will change. We'll probably have to run faster to stand still. There's nothing new in that.
Yeah.
Fundamental changes in the trade, I can't see it. I still think we'll need bricks and mortar, clicks and bricks, as we used to be saying. I think that would be very, very important. And we just run as good a business as we possibly can, get the right people in the right place with the right facilities, and that usually does the job.
I don't know if you feel like there's any challenges the industry is facing at the moment that are particularly tough.
I suppose you know, we need to get this Brexit thing out of the way, because of that I think that is a challenge to the economy generally. You know, some of the manufacturers have some their own profitability challenges.
Right.
It's always much better if you're working with a profitable manufacturer. I think if their profitability improves, our profitability improves, and that's what we're here to do.
So we had a question from Umesh who says, are there any franchises that Perry doesn't have that you would love? I think it's cut off the end of that, but is there any you'd like to have? Maybe a Lotus dealership, as you used to roast Lotuses.
Yeah, Lotus would be good, and Porsche, and I'm a big Porsche fan, but realistically, you know, we are a volume dealer group. We represent most of the volume franchises. So I think that's what we do. I mean, our strategy is very much to have scale, which is with each manufacturer that we represent, because that gives you expertise, and it gives you the right sort of conversation at the right sort of level with the manufacturer.
I don't know this. You've obviously got a Nissan franchise.
Yes, we have.
And we've been hearing reports that alternative fuel cars are doing better. I don't know if it's something that you've seen at Perry's.
Well, we've only got one Nissan, so it's a very small part
Yeah.
of the group, and Nissan seem very keen on the electric cars. It's not really registering. You know, the percentages of electric cars are still very, very small. Okay, it's growing, but it doesn't feel. It's interesting what Tesla's doing, because it's coming in as a different proposition in terms of a real performance car. So that could be interesting as the technology improves and we get performance out of these vehicles, because the other vehicles tend to be more economy type cars, but they're not. They don't have an economy price tag. So that's a bit of a dilemma there. I think that, you know, they need to be cheaper to appeal to the general public.
Which the Model 3 seems to have hit that button.
Yeah.
Whenever we get them eventually.
Yes. Yes.
So something else as well that's come out this week is the NFDA saying that national living wage increase is going to hurt businesses. I don't know I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it's not going to help, is it? It's going to it's going to increase our cost base, and that will have to be one way or the other passed on in terms of our prices. And you know, this is the government moving their, you know, trying to move some of their responsibility onto business. It's not unique to the motor trade. It's something we just have to deal with and get on with.
Is this something that you go through, every few years when they increase it and have to deal?
Yeah. Well, it's same with the pensions issue, isn't it? You know, we're having to top up pensions, and that will increase over the years, and that will put more burden on our cost base again, and we'll have to pass that on to the consumer. That we've no choice.
Right. Okay. So it's not. Is it more likely to hit the consumer than your staff? Because I guess you need them, don't you?
We need them. You know, we need people to valet our cars. And that's probably the big area that it's going to affect. It'll put our valet costs up.
Right.
But we can't give dirty cars to our customers. So.
No. Yeah, definitely. Okay, we've come to the end of the show now. So thank you very much, Umesh, for all your questions, and everybody else, but particularly Umesh, who's been throwing them over. Thank you so much, Ken, for coming on. That's been really interesting, and it's really great to hear your input. We will be back again in a couple of weeks. Obviously, we've got CDX next week, so I really hope that we're going to get to see all of you there. I'm going to be on the live stage all day, so if you're there, make sure you come and talk to me and help me stay sane. And Ken will also be there, so make sure you come over and see him. We're going to be talking about some more interesting things, and you've also got John Tordoff, John O'Hanlon and Nigel McMinn on the franchise dealer panel, so that should be an interesting chat. Hope you're looking forward to it.
Yes.
Okay, we will join you again soon. Thank you very much for being with us today.